overshot your time by a few minutes. That's under presentation. Your reviewer is here. Ask you or raise a few issues with you. One is on what scale is your outcome variable on objective one measured? I seem to almost see that it is binary, employed or unemployed, and therefore this would call for a logistic regression model. Did you use logistic regression model?
Huyu mwanafunzi nilimpea feedback na hajatumia.
Let me mute. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, asante. All right, so I was saying that did you use logistic regression? If so, are you reporting logits or odds ratios? So that would be number one. Number two, you and me know that Kaplan-Meier is a survival analysis model that estimates time to event, how long it takes for something to occur. A lot of this has been used to model, say, patients on terminal illnesses. How long does it take for death to occur, for instance? So they would look at those people over several, so there are time episodes. Time is one of the variables, and then the event occurs or doesn't occur is another. So largely, Kaplan-Meier is going to be talking about two variables. That given, where are your control variables in Kaplan-Meier? I would almost look at it in terms of it could be standalone, but it is almost stopping at just bivariate relationship between time and the event. And then lastly, in objective one, why not model those other outcomes as controls of that, so that you just say, we are running a logistic model for these guys, whether they are employed or not, but we are controlling for their program of study, whether it is modular or non-modular, whether it is this or that, and so on and so forth. So that those are the controls that go in, and you can see the effect of whether it's modular or not modular in that regression when you bring it in model 2. Yeah, so perhaps you can respond to those, and then I'll usher in Dr. Nganyi.
Thank you, Chair. In my presentation, I used the odds ratio, I used the relative risk ratio of explaining this, the logistic model. Remember, I did say earlier that I have got 4 outcome variables: earnings ratio, the employment category is a categorical outcome, and we had 5 outcome variables. And that was the reason for the use of the multinomial logistic regression. Then, and therefore, in the explanation, I have used the relative risk ratios, which is an odds ratio, kind of to explain that, for example, is about 50%. The relative risk ratio of one getting employed, of the nature of course, determining one's employment in in a different field of study is about 51% low. That's 100 minus 49.49, 50% lower, and that has been able to explain. So I was using that as a relative risk ratio. Then number 2, it is true that yes, in the analysis, and I think I've tried to demonstrate that, because you're looking at the Kaplan-Meier, basically it gives you, it's a univariate analysis, and that's why in the analysis I have been able to extend it further to a semi-parametric and parametric, the use of the semi-parametric Cox regression model, and the parametric regression models were now been able to demonstrate that given those control variables as you put in those Cox regression or the Weibull or the Gompers regression, that I was able to make that clear indication of the effect of those specific outcome variables. Just beyond that, that for example, the parametric where I compared the exponential, the Gompers, and the Weibull distribution, I had used the AIC and BIC to find out which model was the one that was giving the best fit, and therefore use it for the analysis. Thank you. You have asked about the same, but I think that question answers why I could not, why not the mode, the way in which I control for the survival. That is how I did control for the other variables as I've indicated in the document. For the sector employed, it's true, it is binary, and I think that has been demonstrated. They were either employed in the public or in the private sector. I used the private sector as the reference category. I have demonstrated the use of the regression analysis, the first outcome on earnings, and how that was computed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting study that has several analyses. For instance, you analyze your data the way you're analyzing it, then you give me the data set and I analyze differently. Yours is plausible, mine is plausible. We may end up with different strengths of those variables at play. So I've seen a lot of discussions in literature where some people disagreed with the way or the findings, and they asked to reanalyze the data. So you could publish several papers using different analyses and justifying why, just to see for academia what that would look like. Thank you very much. Dr. Ngani, kindly and humbly I usher you in. And before you come in, I was going to forget, we have Dr. Consolata Ngala here with our deputy most at DPS. Dr. Ngala would be 31st would be the deadline for people who wish to graduate this year to bring in their work. And we appreciate that memo, Daktari, with humility and a lot of respect for your office and for that communication. The SEDU Graduate Studies Committee kindly asked for an additional 2 weeks. Kindly move that to 15th of September so that you wrap up that. That will ensure that those who are very close to that finishing line can also bring in their work by 50. It's just 2 weeks from now. It's not a big deal. Kindly consider the first deadline. Our chair of department will be writing, I think, officially to ask for that extension. Kindly consider when that happens, and we will ask you to respond to this at the end of this. Thank you for attending. I know you have interests here. You are a supervisor, so we will ask for your indulgence at the end, but kindly consider that prayer. Thank you very much, Daktari. Karibu. Dr. Ngani, my brother. Karibu. Daktari Ngani, your microphone is on. We can't hear you. Daktari Ngani, it's your time. Microphone on, off, on, off. Boardroom, let me allow me to mute and try to reach Dr. Ngani. He seems to be speaking and we can't hear him.
Imeanzaje? He has left the meeting. Code is still working. Adi? Merudi. Tamusera mengi. Nimechoka kusoma. Hizo ni graduate bana. Hizo ni graduate.
Amekubali usindishe baki.
So wataandikia barua.
Dr. Ngani, we can't hear you. He was able to contribute during electives presentation, so I don't know why his gadget is deciding to go on strike. Wilberforce, why structural equation modeling at some stage?
Yeah, but the the fourth objective, basically, if you look at it in terms of comparison, is basically almost different from the rest in the sense that here you're looking at the perception, the perception of these specific graduates in respect to their experiences in their STEM fields. And therefore, because I was looking at the teaching resources, I was looking at the curriculum resources, and having all this, I wanted just to see the combination of all that and how that can be related to a given model. So, the attitude, the things, what they felt in terms of access to workshops and laboratories and equipment and all those things. So, having it one, and then specifically linking it to one outcome variable, that was the employment status by category. So basically, that is how I thought that was the best way to analyze this.
Yeah, so you are saying that those variables in the middle have modified that relationship, so that when we hear X1 saying whether X1 is employed or not, that there is a modification in between here, and that shows.
Yes, that given that you have a mass
how that compares with the other, and you collected some, you talked to these guys in a focus, okay, maybe interviews through, or focus group interviews through WhatsApp call, and so on and so forth. Is that data, you didn't present that data, did you?
I did say that my collection method was interview. So basically, on the last objective was what it was on a 1 to 5 Likert scale in terms of what they observed, what they felt about access to workshops, laboratories, equipment. Yes, what they thought about the curriculum resources and what they felt about the training resources, and therefore the effect of the career services. Because then I was also able to find out from them whether they had any way in which they had an experience from the Office of the Career Services in terms of their present employment status. I think that is how I did evaluate this.
From the qualitative paradigm, have you presented that data qualitatively, bringing out the voices and so on?
Yes, and the reviewer can confirm that. For example, I did ask them.
Okay. Let's give Dr. Ngayenji that time. I think he's now come around. Doctor,
are you getting me?
Yes.
I don't know what was happening with my gadget, but it's okay. I think I had appreciated this presentation, but there are a few issues I may want to raise. The first one is on the title. We have the STEM program, which is looking at 3 aspects: the artisans, the crafts, and then the diploma students. So I don't know who the unit of analysis is, because these are people with different skills. The labor market have different supply, and therefore we may not, in my opinion, lump them together, and then we are looking at the length of time they are take to get employment, or how much they are likely to earn. And therefore we can explain once the unit of analysis, then from there we can probe further. And then 2, in terms of also the independent variable, the measurability, so that we are lumping all these people together, and then we have one score for all of them. So I don't know how that was synchronized to make it possible for these to be measured. And then still on the title, we are looking at the national polytechnics. I don't know why he had to go to the national polytechnics and not just all graduates from technical institutions. And then in the abstract, he has maintained the significance, and I would suggest he needs to bring out the recommendations in the abstract. Background of the study, there is a lot of information that would have, in my opinion, gone to the literature review, and we just remain with the data that may easily link us to the problem. And we also needed to get some aspect of the supply of the different skills or different areas in the background, so that when we are looking at the statement of the problem, then we are saying, despite the fact that we have the supply, there is a problem with employment of these graduates. But without the component of supply, we may not know whether this issue is there because of the training or because of the economy. And then he also mentioned, when he was discussing the thesis, issues to do with skills. There is scarcity of skills in the labor market. So I don't know whether that is true, because we have very many trained and graduates who have left technical institutions, and yet they are not employed. And that's why he may be looking at this study to find out how long it may take for some of these graduates to be employed. So is it the skills, or is it the economy, or the supply of opportunities? When I was looking at the statement of the problem, in my opinion, it may not have been well articulated. So maybe in just a sentence, you tell us what the problem is in this study of his. And then the scope of the study, he has looked at the 2016 cohort. My opinion would have been, he should have looked at graduates leaving the technical institutions at the same time. Because if they are leaving at different times, others are leaving 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, you know, we have the rise in unemployment, or the reduction of unemployment. So graduate leaving 2017 may have left when the employment rate was 3%. Another one leaving in 2020 may have left when unemployment rate is 10%. And therefore, we cannot put them at the same rate of the period of time they are taking before they are getting employed, or in terms of earnings. Those who left in 2017, they may have been employed in 2018 when the earnings were low, and they may have maintained the same jobs. But because of inflation, those who are joining now the labor market in 2020 may have gotten a higher earning. So it may not because of the training, but because of the inflation and related activities. And that's what I was thinking. If they had left at the same time, then it would have been easier to measure the length of time and therefore their earnings. In terms of limitations, he has also just mentioned the limitations which affect studies, but he has not told us what he did or what is supposed to have been done to minimize their effect on this study, which means these factors definitely affected the study and they are not part of the control variables, which actually means there are so many other factors that affected these outcomes that are in the limitations, and yet they were not looked at in terms of how they could be managed. In these variables, injective in terms of modular and non-modular. So I don't know how, when you are going for an employment, how the learners or the graduates, those who did non-modular method, were likely not to be employed, because when you are going for the opportunities, you don't specify the mode of study. And maybe for the fellows or the graduates whom he may have chosen in his study, most of them may have come from non-modular, and that's why maybe most of them are not employed, unless he justifies the number of modular that were used and the number of non-modular, and in the selection of the sample, if that aspect was also considered. And in terms of the last objective, the last academic program and the resources, because these are already graduates outside there, the resources may not necessarily be a factor in terms of employment, because they have already graduated and they are outside there. In terms of the control variables, I don't know why the job supply was not considered as a control variable, because it's only the supply that can tell you how long somebody may stay outside there. If the supply is beyond the demand, then the time may be short. So we needed to know how the supply for all these aspects of STEM are in the labor market, because we may find science is more than the demand, engineering is less than, so it brings a lot of imbalances, and therefore that's why I believe it should have been there. So you can tell us why it was not considered in his study. When I looked at the literature review, I was not able to see the gaps. Maybe you can just tell us one gap in terms of what he went out to find. And in the study area, he says the national polytechnics, but I doubt if the study area is the national polytechnics, because he called this data from these students or graduates all over the country. So I don't know whether the area of study is the national polytechnics or that's where the graduates were found. And in the title, it should have been the same, the area of study being Kenya or the counties and not the national polytechnics. Although this is where the graduates may have come from, but not the area of study. And in this chapter 3, there are some pragmatism, but we have a guidance from the School of Graduate Studies or Director of Graduate Studies, which outlines the aspects that are supposed to be included in the thesis. So I don't know whether these are part of the same. When it comes to literature review, not literature but research design, there is what he calls sequential explanatory mixed methods design. That's what the design he used. But if you look at the explanation of what that design is, it is more of qualitative data. And all the writings are about qualitative data. There is very limited explanation about quantitative data. But if you look at the findings, he has zeroed in on quantitative data. So I believe this design is not the best design for this study. The target population, in the target population, he has given some estimation of the STEM graduates being 70% of the enrollment. I want him to maybe justify or give us the source which says that in these graduates, 70% are from science, because it could be 70% are social scientists. So there is no, I didn't see the source where these emanated from. And still in the same target population, we had the National Statistical Center, the National Bureau of Statistics, gives us the students enrolled. They give us the students enrolled in those institutions. But this study is about the graduates. So, and we know, obviously, there are dropouts and then there are repeaters. So he needs to justify why he had to use enrollment and not graduates. And then the same statistics give us the students enrolled for all the 4 years and all the programs. But he has used the same statistics to mean the students enrolled in 2017, which is okay, the students enrolled in 2017, but that enrollment includes first years, second years, and third years. So it does not only include students who joined the institutions in 2016, which means the statistics is also misleading in terms of the graduates. And I would have thought the best place to get the number of graduates would have been the institutions and not the Kenya Bureau of Statistics through the economic survey, because they would have told us the number that passed from the institutions reduces as go by. So I don't know why he had to get from the he has said in the sample size that the response rate is around 31.9%, and that's why the sample size must be enhanced to bring out this. I don't know where this 31.9% was gotten from. And the sample size is 1,834 respondents, and all these people are to be communicated to through the phone. And I also doubt the possibility of calling 1,834 respondents. And if you look at the questionnaire, I've been going through that to call and get the information, and then now convert the qualitative data through interviews to that he has used, because he has not told us how possible that is, but he can explain to us how possible that is. And you know, now he's getting these students from the enrolled students from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics through economic survey, but he's using phone numbers. I don't know how that is possible, how he got it from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics to get the phone numbers for all these students. Maybe as I finalize, there are 3 types of sampling he used. He used proportionate sampling, he used stratified sampling, and then he also used simple random sampling. Maybe you can clarify on the difference between the 3 and how the 3 were utilized. And as he used these 3, I don't know how he got now the students to now call after doing this sampling, because I would have thought a different method would have made suffice or would have included like snowball, because you don't even know. And you know, many of these students, when they are doing, some of them don't even have phones. So I wonder, because they use sometimes their parents, but along the way, they acquire their own phones. And he has not told us any challenge in reaching out to these students. He also looked at some secondary data. I don't know, but he can also, I didn't get it very well. Maybe you can just mention how the secondary data was important and which one he may have used in this study. We also have the issue of reliability. We know many times we use questionnaires to establish reliability. The questionnaires are not there. But if you look at the reliability section in the piloting of such instruments, he has mentioned a questionnaire. But in the instruments, he's just talking about interviews and focus group discussions. So I don't know where the questionnaire has emerged for calculation of reliability, given that he's only carrying out interviews. And even if that is the case, there is no reliability index. So you can't know whether the instrument that is coding questionnaire was reliable or not. Then in the validity, he is coming up with what we are calling, he used actually 6 specialists, and 4 of them gave some response. So I don't know whether the response the 4 gave was an optional, because he is calling it essential response. So if there's an essential response, then there must be an essential response. I don't know how the two are in terms of validity and what they mean. And he has gone ahead to make some calculations on validity, and therefore I just want for him to clarify to us the difference between reliability and validity, and where do we use experts, and when you're using experts, do we use the experts for the purpose of calculation or for the purpose of just consideration of the content, and why it does not have values for reliability. And still in chapter 3 there are many other sections: use of references, data screening and cleaning, and many other aspects which I believe should be adhered to in terms of what DPS wants us to do in terms of the content. So we have the quantitative data analysis. He has written so much about it, but if I go to one of them, he says he carried out a correlation analysis, and he used the t-test, he used the chi-square, he used symbol regression, and he used ANOVA in the same objective. So I was imagining, wondering how all the 4 can be applied in the same objective. But he can clarify, because some of them are for nominal, others for ratio. But if it's the same objective, it means can either be, unless there are different sub-hypotheses within the same hypothesis, within the same objective. Especially like objective 1, we say the bivariate analysis including t-tests, chi-square, symbol regression, and ANOVA. So he can clarify twice why use t-test at the same time use ANOVA, at the same time use chi-square, just for the first objective, which is reappearing for the other objectives. I have no much issue about chapter 4 because the information derived in chapter 4 is from the analysis. So if the analysis is okay, then chapter 4 will be okay. Although there's a lot of information in chapter 4 which has not been utilized in the study, or it was to be part of the objectives. So you should just be able to sieve and use only important statistics and relevant data for as derived from the objectives. Yeah, because there must be that flow from the title objectives and then data analysis, and then the same variables should appear in the analysis. Chapter 4, chapter 5, the only thing I wish to say is that about recommendations, they are not derived from the study objectives, because like the second one, even the first one, institutions should expand the modular program because this is a choice and we must diversify. So other than employment opportunities and the pay, it may achieve or may have been used to achieve other objectives. And then number 2, career counseling. I don't know why, because it was not part of the study. So he has put it as a recommendation. I would have thought they should have been tied to what was in the objectives. And lastly, the questionnaire was very long as per what I was given. If you are doing an interview, I don't know how possible it is for the person to objectively respond to all those issues and consistently, because it will call for a lot of inconsistencies. Others, I think, Chair, plus other comments that the candidate be able to see, those are my key areas of interest.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngani, for a very comprehensive review of Jahonga's work. I would love to receive that in your report so that Wilberforce can use it to really work on his document. So thank you very much. We really appreciate. Bwana Jahonga, kindly respond to the issues that Dr. Ngani has raised. Quite a number of them are weighty. Karibu.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you thank you, Daktari, for your insightful observations of the document. Let's see how to begin. Now, number 1, Daktari, in that document, I have been able to carefully indicate that our studying STEM program characteristics of graduates of National Polytechnic for the period in the scope 2016 and 2022. That effectively meant that we wanted to find out 5 years into the job market, labor market, how did they fare on, considering that they pursued modular and non-modular programs, that some of them pursued artisan level of certificate, some of them did craft, some of them did diploma, and some of them did higher national diploma. Within the same, that some of them also were doing specific fields of study, as to whether it was civil engineering or electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or institutional management or health or applied sciences as field of study. Those are the specific issues that this study sought to address as the program characteristics. And then in the fourth objective, just to summarize, so that you have these students now who have been in the field 5 years down the lane. Some of them, as you put it rightfully, they have left 5 years, others slightly more than 5 years. But on average, that it was 5 years time being in the labor market. So what are the current experiences on these specific labor market outcomes, which I have defined as their earnings, as their employment category, as their sector employed, and as how long they take to get these job opportunities. And because of that, Chair, I have been able to carefully differentiate between one level and another, whether it is a certificate course, because you want to find out this specific level compared to the other one and the other one. How does that affect the labor market outcomes in terms of the four outcome variables that I have indeed explained? In the document further, Chair, indeed, I did a survey in 11 national polytechnics in the country through a telephone interview with information having been given by registrars of the specific institutions concerning the 2016 admission year. And so because of that, one of the reasons, as I have indicated in the background, is that indeed it is true that there is a lot of funding and there is a lot of increased number of student enrollment, and there is a lot of number of institutions that have been, mounted up in Kenya towards TVET education. And therefore, within this effect of this, with this enhancement, the big question has been, to what extent do we see a positive labor market outcome as a result of the expansion of the TVET education? And within the four parameters that have been able to explain in the document. And therefore, as you have put it rightfully, I will look into the background, as you have said, so that you can capture out clearly, as the chair also said, probably to talk so much about the outcome variable and then beef it up in the background so that you can fit properly according to those observations. I have made several assumptions and in this study, Chair. One of them is that this study could not look at the macro and the micro economic happenings of the country. You didn't look at the interest rate. I didn't look at the inflation rate. I assumed, for example, this was a COVID season, and in the document I've indicated that, the issues of re-employment, for example, you have got a job, then you left a job because of the COVID effect. That has also been taken care of in the document. Further, the statistical instrument I've used to make this analysis has also not taken care, Chair, about the observed and the unobserved individual characteristics of these graduates. That some of these graduates had peculiar characteristics that the variables that I have used as control variables did not take care of, and that I have also been able to explain. Now, concerning, and that is the reason why, therefore, Chair, that yes, that there are other exogenous variables that can determine the extent to which one will immediately or get an employment later. Indeed, there are many other variables, but then within this short-term period, this study sought to narrow it down within the the framework of a relative risk ratio, which I've used as a multinomial logistic regression, just to find out, the relative risk ratio of one getting employed in a field of study, outside field of study, self-employed. What would be, the that probability at the end of the day. And therefore, within this framework, Chair, how have I addressed the research gap? We know that, that yes, studies have discussed so much about unemployment rate. In the study, Chair, I have done an estimation of one's probability of getting employment and given various assumptions which are indicated in the document, female, male, modular, non-modular, given the coefficients of the Cox ratio, for example, and variable coefficients that I did indicate in the document, what would be the likelihood and the chances of this person getting employment at a particular time, and that I've been able to demonstrate in the document, Chair. And therefore, one thing that I should reconsider in the analysis that the review has said is viewing or reviewing different employment levels, or rather reviewing different certification levels, and finding out, it's like there are some students, for example, who did artisan. They left in 2017. The craft, the craft left in 2017. The artisan left in 2017. The artisan left in 2017, the craft left in 2018, the diploma left in 2019. So in between, it is true that we have different, variables. Can I say that you have got different groups that you are comparing? But I think, Chair, there is a way in which you can use fixed effects and random effects to counter that, and I think that can easily be modeled using one of that, and I think I can consider how to shape in the fixed effects and the random effects, given those specific variables that indeed the reviewer has indicated, and that is quite insightful. You have talked about the issue of model. I think I have been able to explain the issue of the modular and non-modular, why I believe that is truthful. Indeed, the proportion of the modular was about 48 to 52%, almost 50-50. The modular, there were 48. If you look at the descriptive statistics that have indicated, about 48% and 52%. So that means that it was a fair distribution. And therefore, there's one that we didn't have one that had an upper, advantage over the other in terms of the analysis. Why National Polytechnics, Chair? One, because it cuts across. In National Polytechnics, you have the effect of having these students dispersed from all the parts of the country. And if the reviewer can also check on the document, I've been able to explain and see how those graduates were actually from all the 47 counties in the country. And that also enabled me to look at the migration patterns. If you control for migration pattern, you're born in this county, you went to another county, how did that affect your employment outcome, and in which specific field of employment? That, I think, the document purpose to implement. Chair, also, maybe because of the quantitative aspect of my presentation, I have been able to clearly represent a qualitative aspect of responses through the focus group discussions and the telephone interviews I had with the respective registrars. And if the reviewer could just could go through that, I think there are quite a number of observations that the document has given out clearly on the opinions. For example, when we are talking about the modular, why the modular had a higher rate of a lower period duration of unemployment, why it takes the modular programs to get employment faster than. We found out about the changes in the curriculum review given by the National Polytechnics. You may be aware that currently now polytechnics are no longer giving the the Kenya National Examination Council examination as it has been. So you have got a curriculum review and you have got specific curriculum changes that have been taking place specifically within the modular programs. And now you want to find out how that has been impactful. And I have been able to explain that also well in the document. As to whether I did a non-sequential explanatory analysis, Chair, I think still hold the view that indeed, yes, I have been able to analyze quantitative information as the document has shown and given an explanation through FJ focus group discussions and the interviews to explain those trends that I found in the quantitative analysis. I got the information one at the when formulating this problem. Chair, I looked at the trends. What does the Kenya Bureau of Statistics say about the trends? And I gave that in the document. And then after that, you want to get the specific information at the institutional level. And so you want to find out exactly. So that 70%, Chair, was basically an average based on the information that I found on the ground and said that this was the average from all the 11 institutions. And so that's how I did compute that. Yes, that out of 1834, I had actually about 12 research assistants. I did serious telephone interviews, and it's true that there were major challenges in the interview. Actually, one omission that I think I should have indicated in this document is the fact that whenever you would call and some of these students did not have contact, you would ask one to assist to the other one. That was snowballing. And so that did not feature out very well in the document, but that has been rightfully captured by the reviewer, and I thank you for that. I should include that there was some snowballing effect, one gradually leading me to another and another. But overall, when I got the list of students together with their telephone numbers, one of the things that I did was to inform the same registrars to include them in their website that we are doing this survey, because at the time of making this interview, sometimes responders would hang because they're thinking that it's a scam, you are a thief or something like that, you want to steal from them. That happened several times. And that is the reason why we had to increase the sample size to 1834 perhaps. And that's why when we did, at the end of the day, we had to get the actual one that fell to 1473 respondents. In the sampling, I have stated clearly that I did, yes, stratified simple random sampling, and I said that I had 3 stratas, one at the level of program type, modular and modular, and then the second level of that was by the level of certification, and then the third level was the field of study. Now it's like you're dropping down that way. You are having those specific stratas. Then from those stratas, I made a simple random sampling. But just before then, I had to do a proportional sample. Now you have got about 30,000. Then you have got the target group that is 21,151. You want to get a proportion from every particular national polytechnic. Then within the institution, now you want to do that stratification kind of sampling. Until now, I got the I generated a random number given this stratification process to now get the specific graduates that are needed to do the interview with. The secondary data is basically the students I got, how much did they perform. For example, Chair, this variable did not come out so clearly, and I think that for me is an issue. The examination grade, the assumption that was in this when I collected the examination results, including the telephone numbers and the list of the students, was to make an assumption that probably is there a way in which the examination performance can affect one's employment outcome. If you got a distinction, for example, in our Tibet institutions, we have got levels of performance. One can pass with a distinction, one can pass with a credit pass, with a refer, or with a fail. So so can that level of examination grade, for example, affect one's outcome? That was the reason why I did that. Then I have been able to address the issue of the how I did compute. For example, when I'm looking at income in the first objective, Chair, we are looking at nature of programs.
Chair,
And
can I say something?
Yes.
Chair.
Yes, Dr. Ngani.
Yeah, maybe he's saying so many things that have computed because they were just specific issues. Maybe the first one was what was the unit of analysis. Then he should just have moved like that. Even in terms of sampling, there are three. So I just wanted him to differentiate between the three so that he says proportionate is like this, stratified is like this, random sampling is supposed to be applied like this. Then he goes to reliability. Those major issues are just asked, not the so many issues he has brought on board.
Fair enough. Thank you. Wilberforce, kindly zero in on the major issues.
Just the one, what is the unit of analysis?
The unit of analysis here is the graduates of national polytechnics in this the graduates.
It's okay. Then
And
the
then
outcome is graduate.
yes, that I was looking at. Those are the people that I did. That was the unit of analysis, and that's now we wanted to find out exactly their employment outcomes. Now, I have explained about the sampling. Maybe I don't know whether I put it properly. I did say that I used a stratified simple random sampling technique. Where in the first case, I'm saying that you have got three stratas. The first strata is the program type.
Yeah, maybe for stratified, you have three stratas. How about proportionate?
Proportionate now, as I think I had also said earlier that here you have got 30,000 graduates of 2016 cohort. That your specific target group is 21. Those 21,000 students are within the 11 institutions. What was the proportion of one population to the rest in respect to one specific institution? That was the proportion sampling. So I wanted to get the proportion of, say, for example, Nyeri National Polytechnic. How many were they? Then the total population. Then what was the proportion in my study of 1834? That is what.
Maybe the other issue, yeah, we are clear with that reliability.
Yes, that I have looked at the Pearson product moment correlation of when you have got the questionnaire. I did say that I did a pilot study at one of the TTI for just checking whether the variables, the questionnaire was indeed giving what it went, and I have demonstrated that I did a Pearson product moment. Maybe unless that document does not reveal. I've also shown that I had a discussion with my supervisors about the extent to which that questionnaire was bringing out what was intended. And Chair, let me also say this: that currently there is a software or an application called Cobol Tool. Cobol Tool. It is in the document. Cobol Tool.
The document I have, maybe I didn't see what you are talking about, Pearson, the Cobalt, or the index. What was the index? And did you use interview to carry out piloting or a questionnaire?
No, the document does not indicate. I didn't indicate the interview because basically for the questionnaire, I was basically interested in the questionnaire itself because the unit of analysis was the graduates. Therefore, that is the tool that I did test. And Chair, I was just saying that when you're looking at such a lengthy interview, I used a software called Cobol Tool. So the questionnaires were within the software, within the phone. And so you have two phones, like, so you're filling as you directly coding whatever the respondents were saying. And I think that has also been explained in the document. So now transferring that into Excel sheet and then transferring that into Stata is fairly simple. And that's what I think I did in the analysis. Chair, the reviewer has also asked me about why did I use the t-test and in the same objective. I think I've indicated that this objective you have got 4 objectives within one hypothesis, if I would say so. You have the first objective, but within the first objective, you have 4 outcomes. So you want to, for example, look at the changes, if there are any differences in terms of earnings between the modular and the non-modular at the very start, the univariate level, then the bivariate level, which is the t-test. Then if we found that it was statistically significant and you want to perform a multivariate analysis, which I have also demonstrated in the document, yes, that I did a multivariate analysis using a regression analysis, the robust regression, which the document has also declared. Just like for the sector employed, again, you want to look at the changes in the incomes between the private and the differences between the private and the public sector. If yes, there is a difference, then it gives you room, permission now to do a further analysis to find out why this is happening. And I was able to use again a multinomial logistic regression, looking at the relative risk ratio with control variables that the document has explained. I'll look into what you have said about recommendations to see, although the first objective that you just read is talking about modular, and the results I did show that yes, there seems to be some significant impact of modular programs over non-modular program, and that's the reason for the first recommendation, Chair, and maybe I stand guided. I've also demonstrated that career services, though not an outcome, but as a fourth objective that did affect the entire outcome of the employment category, did play. But then also I stand guided in the recommendations of this study. Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Ngani, any follow-ups? Any more follow-ups?
No, for now, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now open it up to members of faculty. The first to go is
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jahonga, for that wonderful presentation. Just like your reader has said, there are a few issues that are still glaring in your document. Quite a number have been mentioned, and I'm glad that Dr. Ipari did mention my concern, which I did ask last time, that is about your objective 4. You did collect the qualitative information, though you've explained you have a software of how you did go about analyzing that information. And then you ended up presenting it in a structural equation modeling. With the research is not all about how well you're versed with presenting information, but I want you to be cautious about the quality of the information you're presenting. When you collect qualitative information, and for your information, I did tell you that structural equation model that you have presented here, it's a complete study on its own, and each arrow from endogenous to extraneous to the outcome variable, that is a hypothesis. And then my question is, are you really addressing all about 9 or so hypotheses? Are you really testing all the about 9 hypotheses in that SME that you have presented? That was my question last time, and I'm still asking. But listening to you present today, you collected qualitative information and you wanted to make structures out of it. Still, it does not fit. It's way more beyond what you want to address in Objective 4. So my advice is the qualitative, yes, if you move from one, like what you presented, the construct to another, that one should be addressing hypothesis. And for sure, you have not presented those, you're not testing those hypotheses in your study. So my simple advice is Don't dilute the good qualitative data you have collected. Simply present them in a narrative way, because we will want to hear the voices of these graduates from technical institutions. What is their experience? They either have good networks, they have a father or somebody, a relative who has under their company. Alternatively, these are people who have gone through the Juakali or hands-on, and probably they're just coming to college to get that certification so that they can get big tenders of jobs. That is partly my thinking. Anyway, do not dilute the good qualitative data you have collected, but simply present the narratives, the perception more informative, other than combining and creating indexes, and now you want to find the significance of the study. No, that is not how it will go or how it works. So also, I think your reader for today has mentioned you need to link the implication, the significant or the practical takeaway or implication of your study. Link it to the objectives or the research questions. And that's one the reader for today, your reader has mentioned that, and I'm still insisting on that, because your variables or focal variables are so closely related that if you're not very keen, you may just say things, beat around the bush, and you go away without telling us what specific takeaway do a reader or a researcher like us are supposed to take to get from your document. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ekulo, for those observations. Wilberforce?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, there is a concern about the structural equation model, and that it gives out more than the specific research objective that I've been analyzing. Maybe I'll have to dig deeper into my analysis, although I still think that I did the relevant preliminary tests with a specific intention of looking for the thoughts about the.
Okay, sorry, Wilberforce. Are you diluting qualitative data that you collected? You collect voices, then you now don't know those voices, and you end up beginning to hunt structures.
Yeah, maybe I need to beef up my presentation, but I think the reviewer can confirm that indeed in every hypothesis we were able to demonstrate that there was a voice of the reviewer, the registrars and the Office of the Career Services Officers. Maybe the manner in which it was presented did not capture it out well, but I think I've been able to give a response for every outcome that I had some kind of voice that would explain, because I was saying I was using a sequential explanatory. You do the quantitative, then explain the patterns using the voices of those researchers. And lastly, I think the chair, this document has demonstrated, this thesis has demonstrated that when you're looking at, say, the program or non-modular programs, I have demonstrated that, most likely when you're looking at employment outcomes, what do we focus on? And the registrars, for example, were saying,
Sorry, Wilberforce. Do you respect the qualitative paradigm of research?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think that it can stand on its own?
In the fourth objective, I am almost afraid, because it cannot be done independently. It cannot be done independently. Let me just tell you.
Okay, because
because Chair, you see, I have indeed explained that I'm using a sequential explanatory. So I may not have the strength to go purely qualitative. Sorry, I'm having a challenge.
Okay, Dr. Wekulo's hand is still up. Maybe we can bring that to a close, Dr. Wekulo.
Thank you once again, Chair. Back to you, Wilberforce. Which specific objective or research question are you using? Are you addressing using the qualitative data that you collected? Maybe that's where we can start from. Or you're just bringing it on as a by the way.
Chair, in the analysis.
No, my question is which research objective or research question or hypothesis are you using? Are you utilizing the qualitative data to address?
Yes, the questions that I did ask the OCSs and the registers.
No, which of your research questions in the document are you addressing using the qualitative data that you collected?
Chair, I want to repeat again what I've just responded. Let me just give the.
Can you show us the objectives there? Can you go to where your objectives are, and then you say this objective is what convinced me to collect qualitative data?
I don't know, Chair. Maybe I stand guided. These are the research objectives. I don't know whether you're able to see this. Hello? Hello, Chair.
Yes, I can see them. I'm putting my glasses on. Yes, I can't read. I can see the objectives. So which objective would you say convinced you to go qualitative?
I don't know whether in the document, Chair, in the first place, I have explained purely qualitative. I think that's the reason why I needed some guidance. Because
yes,
I have explained.
Explaining very well in the document, bringing in the qualitative aspect in the document. When you don't have an objective you're addressing, I think maybe you're violating the research practice. Because which question allows you to collect the data, and why are you bringing it on board? Because I see the first one establish the effect, the second one, the effect, the third one, the effect, the fourth one, the effect. No perception, no other. So I don't